The Qur'an on Mountains, a book entitled Earth, is a basic reference textbook in many universities around the world. One of its two authors is Professor Emeritus Frank Press. He was the science advisor to former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, and for 12 years was the president of the National Academy of Sciences, Washington, D.C. His book says that mountains have underlying roots. These roots are deeply embedded in the ground, thus, mountains have a shape like a peg. See figures 7 and 8 and 9 on the next page. This is how the Quran has described mountains. God has said in the Quran, "Have we not made the earth as a bed, and the mountains as pegs?" Quran 78:6-7. The ground. So the most suitable word to describe mountains on the basis of this information is the word peg, since most of a properly set peg is hidden under the surface of the ground. The history of science tells us that the theory of mountains having deep roots was introduced only in 1865 by the astronomer royal, Sir George Airy. Mountains also play an important role in stabilizing the crust of the earth. They hinder the shaking of the earth. God has said in the Quran, "And He has set firm mountains in the earth so that it would not shake with you." Quran 16:15. Likewise, the modern theory of plate tectonics holds that mountains work as stabilizers for the earth. This knowledge about the role of mountains as stabilizers for the earth has just begun to be understood in the framework of plate tectonics since the late 1960s. For could anyone during the time of the Prophet Muhammad have known of the true shape of mountains? Could anyone imagine that the solid massive mountain which he sees before him actually extends deep into the earth and has a root, as scientists affirm? Modern geology has confirmed the truth of the Quranic verses. The Quran on the origin of the universe, the science of modern cosmology, observational and theoretical, clearly indicates that, at one point in time, the whole universe was nothing but a cloud of smoke, i.e. an opaque highly dense and hot gaseous composition. This is one of the undisputed principles of standard modern cosmology. Scientists now can observe new stars forming out of the remnants of that smoke, see figures 10 and 11. The illuminating stars we see at night were, just as was the whole universe, in that smoke material. God has said in the Quran, "Then He turned to the heaven when it was smoke." Quran 41:11, because the earth and the heavens above, the sun, the moon, stars, planets, galaxies, etc., have been formed from this same smoke, we conclude that the earth and the heavens were one connected entity. Then out of this homogeneous smoke, they formed and separated from each other. God has said in the Quran, "Have not those who disbelieve known that the heavens and the earth were one connected entity, then we separated them?" Quran 21:30. Dr. Alfred Kroner is one of the world's renowned geologists. He is professor of geology and the chairman of the Department of Geology at the Institute of Geosciences, Johannes Gutenberg University, Mainz, Germany. He said, thinking where Muhammad came from, I think it is almost impossible that he could have known about things like the common origin of the universe, because scientists have only found out within the last few years, with very complicated and advanced technological methods, that this is the case. Also he said, somebody who did not know something about nuclear physics 1400 years ago could not, I think, be in a position to find out from his own mind, for instance, that the earth and the heavens had the same origin. 1. The Quran on the Cerebrum. God has said in the Quran about one of the evil unbelievers who forbade the Prophet Muhammad from praying at the Kaaba, "No. If he does not stop, we will take him by the nasaya, front of the head, a lying, sinful nasaya, front of the head." Quran 96:15-16. Why did the Quran describe the front of the head as being lying and sinful? Why didn't the Quran say that the person was lying and sinful? What is the relationship between the front of the head and lying and sinfulness? If we look into the skull at the front of the head, we will find the prefrontal area of the cerebrum, see figure 12. What does physiology tell us about the function of this area? A book entitled Essentials of Anatomy and Physiology says about this area, the motivation and the foresight to plan and initiate movements occur in the anterior portion of the frontal lobes, the prefrontal area. This is a region of association cortex. 2. Also the book says, in relation to its involvement in motivation, the prefrontal area is also thought to be the functional center for aggression. 3. So, this area of the cerebrum is responsible for planning, motivating, and initiating good and sinful behavior and is responsible for the telling of lies and the speaking of truth. Thus, it is proper to describe the front of the head as lying and sinful when someone lies or commits a sin, as the Qur'an has said. A lying, sinful Messiah, front of the head. Scientists have only discovered these functions of the prefrontal area in the last 60 years, according to Professor Keith L. Moore. 1. The Qur'an on seas and rivers. Modern science has discovered that in the places where two different seas meet, there is a barrier between them. This barrier divides the two seas so that each sea has its own temperature, salinity, and density. 2. For example, Mediterranean sea water is warm, saline, and less dense, compared to Atlantic Ocean water. When Mediterranean sea water enters the Atlantic over the Gibraltar Sill, it moves several hundred kilometers into the Atlantic at a depth of about 1,000 meters with its own warm, saline, and less dense characteristics. The Mediterranean water stabilizes at this depth. 1. See figure 13. Although there are large waves, strong currents, and tides in these seas, they do not mix or transgress this barrier. The Holy Qur'an mentioned that there is a barrier between two seas that meet and that they do not transgress. God has said, He has set free the two seas meeting together. There is a barrier between them. They do not transgress. Qur'an, 55:19-20. But when the Qur'an speaks about the divider between fresh and salt water, it mentions the existence of a forbidding partition with the barrier. God has said in the Qur'an, He is the one who has set free the two kinds of water, one sweet and palatable, and the other salty and bitter. And He has made between them a barrier and a forbidding partition. Qur'an, 25:53. One may ask, why did the Qur'an mention the partition when speaking about the divider between fresh and salt water, but did not mention it when speaking about the divider between the two seas? Modern science has discovered that in estuaries, where fresh, sweet, and salt water meet, the situation is somewhat different from what is found in places where two seas meet. It has been discovered that what distinguishes fresh water from salt water in estuaries is a picnic line zone with a marked density discontinuity separating the two layers. 1. This partition, zone of separation, has a different salinity from the fresh water and from the salt water. 2. See figure 14. This information has been discovered only recently, using advanced equipment to measure temperature, salinity, density, oxygen dissolubility, etc. The human eye cannot see the difference between the two seas that meet, rather the two seas appear to us as one homogeneous sea. Likewise, the human eye cannot see the division of water in estuaries into the three kinds, fresh water, salt water, and the partition, zone of separation.